They called him a hair mogul, a man whose brushes and scissors ruled red carpets, whose salons catered to the glitterati, whose name was whispered in the same breath as glamour. But one cold January evening in Woodland Hills, his life was cut short, and behind the veneer of fame and prosperity lay a web of secrets, betrayal, and a plot so audacious it would take years to unspool. When his body was found poolside in a suburban backyard, detectives at first believed the crime to be a brazen burglary gone wrong. But as they dug deeper, what appeared to be a botched break-in began to unravel into something far darker. A love triangle, encrypted messages, and the chilling possibility that his own wife had orchestrated his death. This is the story of the hair mogul's wife murder case, a California crime that blurred lines between passion and premeditation, and the convoluted investigation that followed. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Criminal Minds Archives and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the darkest and most unsettling true crime cases. Marco DeRosa had built an empire in hair care and styling. His reputation was stellar. Salons clamored for his techniques, and he held a high executive position in a major cosmetics firm. Elena was seen in public as the loyal wife, poised, glamorous, involved in philanthropic functions, and mother to their 2 daughters. But beneath the surface, the marriage was complicated by secrets and a torrid affair. Robert Knox was more than just a fitness or racquetball coach. He had a criminal history, a conviction as a sex offender from decades earlier, and ties to the adult film industry. His path intersected with Elena's professionally. She had taken to racquetball lessons, and in time, the two became entangled. Christopher Austin would later emerge as a supporting player, a man with connections to Knox, and someone who claimed to act on the latter's instructions. From the outset, the setting was idyllic. Woodland Hills, Los Angeles, in a quiet, upscale neighborhood, where grand homes boasted pristine lawns and serene backyard pools. On January 23, 2017, something shattered that veneer. On that evening, young Isabel arrived home from an errand and discovered the unimaginable. She found the backyard scattered with ominous red stains. She ran inside, horrified, to find her father, Marco DeRosa, slumped poolside, stabbed multiple times. Paramedics and detectives soon arrived. At first blush, the crime scene suggested a possible burglary. Doors appeared ajar, things seemed rummaged. Yet anomalies tugged at investigators' instincts. A Rolex watch, worth thousands, still adorned Marco's wrist, unlikely the work of opportunistic thieves. The safe within the house remained untouched. The home's security system had been compromised. The DVR storing surveillance footage vanished from the garage. Marco's Porsche, from the couple's garage, was missing, later found abandoned. Droplets of blood inside. Detectives began treating the scene not as a burglary gone wrong, but as a staged crime scene. While the trauma of the moment consumed the family, investigators pivoted toward those closest to the victim. Elena's behavior raised questions. She had told first responders she was not a wife anymore, a phrase she repeated in a dazed whisper over and over. Friends later recounted that Elena had texted a friend to come over urgently around the time of the slaying, saying only, "Come now, something is wrong." When that friend arrived, she was stopped at the door by a stranger who murmured, "Don't step in the blood." Meanwhile, forensic teams began processing DNA, fingerprints, and digital tracings. They ran everything through databases. A breakthrough came when blood droplets in the abandoned Porsche were compared against databases. They matched Robert Knox. Knox wasn't entirely a stranger. As Elena's racquetball coach, he had legitimate access to her. The overlapping social circles, physical proximity, and emergent behavioral inconsistencies made him a person of interest. Detectives also uncovered that Knox had a criminal past, a prior sexual offense conviction, which left his DNA on file. That helped give the match legal weight. But a compelling question remained. How did Knox gain access to the DeRosa residence without detection? Surveillance footage was missing, and the DVR was gone. That suggested someone inside had orchestrated or facilitated access. Investigators began poring over phone records, text logs, and encrypted messaging systems. they traced communications between Elena and Knox. Over a 2-day span, 180 messages preceded the murder, and 95 messages on the day of murder, all via an encrypted app. One piece of damning potential evidence. Elena had been watching live feeds of security cameras shortly before the murder, allegedly to ensure Knox had a clear path. It was here in encrypted threads, timestamp motion, and subtle digital breadcrumbs that the investigation's narrative began shifting. Instead of a random, opportunistic attack, there emerged a portrait of premeditation. As prosecutors would later argue, Elena had multiple motives: personal desire, betrayal of marriage, and financial gain. At stake was a life insurance policy of about USD 1.6 million. Her defense would retort, "Adultery is not murder, no matter how twisted a love affair. Having an illicit relationship does not automatically equate to crafting a homicide." Enter Christopher Austin, a man who claimed Knox had confided in him that Elena wanted her husband dead. Austin said he never spoke to her directly, but that the plan was relayed via Knox that Elena would signal when the time was right, even ensuring the door was unlocked and access undisrupted. Austin also recounted that Knox covered his mouth and started stabbing the victim at close range, while Austin claimed to blindfold and deliver one hit. Prosecutors presented corollaries: messages exchanged just before and after the murder, visitor logs, timing of Elena's movements allegedly going out to shop to create an alibi while orchestrating the crime, the unlocked front door and surveillance system manipulation. In that moment, the case pivoted. They were no longer chasing a lone murderer, but tracing a conspiracy, the possibility that Elena DeRosa was the mastermind. By mid-2017, after months of digital forensics, the Los Angeles Police Department felt confident enough to act. On May 23, 2017, they made 2 arrests, Elena DeRosa and Robert Knox, charging both with capital murder and conspiracy. News spread fast. A glamorous widow turned accused mastermind made national headlines. The story had everything tabloids craved: a beauty executive, a millionaire lifestyle, a secret lover, and a gruesome poolside killing. Behind the flashing cameras, detectives kept digging. When they examined Elena's phone, they found layers of encrypted chats deleted days after the murder. Her defense argued she had wiped messages merely to hide an affair from her children. But prosecutors saw something far more deliberate in an attempt to erase coordination. Inepris. When confronted in interrogation, Elena's calm demeanor unsettled investigators. She denied all involvement, maintaining that her lover must have acted on his own out of obsession or jealousy. Knox, on the other hand, oscillated between half-truths and deflection. At first, he claimed he had never even met the husband. When shown DNA evidence, his blood on the steering wheel of Marco's Porsche, he shifted, saying he had borrowed the vehicle days earlier, a claim investigators found absurd. Detectives also discovered that Knox had visited the DeRosa home multiple times, once even while Marco was away at a beauty industry conference. Neighbors reported seeing a stocky man with tattoos and a gym bag near the garage matching Knox's description. Then came a chilling detail. In Knox's residence, detectives found a stun gun, knives, and handwritten notes referencing watching the pool and door unlocked. The evidence was circumstantial but damning when added to the trail of texts. The man at the heart of the plot fascinated and disturbed investigators. Robert Knox was a study in contradictions, charming on the surface, deeply troubled underneath. Once a racquetball coach, he had long supplemented his income through side hustles, one of which tied back to the adult film industry, where he had appeared decades earlier under pseudonyms. He also carried a criminal record, a 1990s conviction for sexual assault, which explained why his DNA sat in federal databases. Prosecutors would later argue that Knox's ego and finances made him the perfect accomplice. He craved validation, cash, and the affection of a wealthy woman promising a shared life once her husband was gone. But what cemented the investigators' theory wasn't the motive, it was the pattern of coordination. Encrypted calls on the morning of the murder. Knox's cell tower data placing him near the DeRosa residence within the 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. window when Marco was killed. A gas station receipt with his credit card timestamped minutes after the estimated time of death. Meanwhile, Christopher Austin, the third link, started to talk. He'd been questioned earlier but was re-interviewed after the arrests. Austin told detectives Knox had once confided, "She wants it clean, fast, and to look like a robbery." That single sentence reframed the entire timeline. In 2019, as prosecutors built their case, public speculation turned frenzied. Was Elena truly the mastermind, or merely an adulteress caught in the orbit of a dangerous man? Her legal team insisted the police had constructed a narrative of betrayal to fit a messy but non-criminal affair. They argued the DNA, messages, and alleged motives all pointed to Knox alone, not to a calculated conspiracy. Prosecutors disagreed. They painted a story of cold orchestration. She opened the door. She removed the cameras. She watched the feed. And when she knew he was dead, she sent her lover one final message: done. It was alleged that she used an encrypted app to send confirmation immediately after the murder. The evidence package was massive. Digital logs, financial statements, insurance records, surveillance footage from nearby homes, and witness interviews. Among the most disturbing were the autopsy photos. Marco had been stabbed 7 times, and one wound to the neck nearly severed his carotid artery. He had fought back. Bruises on his hands told detectives he had recognized his killer before dying. In court filings, prosecutors noted no forced entry, implying cooperation from someone inside. The case by then had become one of Los Angeles County's most high-profile domestic homicide investigations in years. Years passed as both sides wrangled over evidence and legal motions. COVID delays added to the backlog. During that time, Elena lived under house arrest on $1.6 million bail, maintaining her innocence and even continuing to post on social media images of sunsets, hair care events, and cryptic quotes about truth always winning. Robert Knox, however, remained in custody. In 2022, after nearly 5 years behind bars awaiting trial, he reached a breaking point. Facing overwhelming evidence, DNA, witness statements, and Austin's cooperation, Knox pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and conspiracy, agreeing to testify if needed. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. For prosecutors, his confession was the missing puzzle piece. They now had a living witness ready to testify that the murder was commissioned, not spontaneous. The trial of Elena DeRosa began in April 2024 at the Los Angeles Superior Court. Inside Department 106, a subdued audience watched as a woman once seen at galas and beauty industry events now sat behind defense counsel, dressed in beige sweaters and thick glasses. The prosecution's opening statement was stark. She wanted her freedom, her lover, and her husband's fortune. So she designed a plan to make it all happen in one afternoon. They laid out the digital trail, the encrypted messages, deleted chats, alibi trip, and insurance motive. Then came Knox's testimony. In a trembling voice, he told jurors Elena had promised him a future, convincing him that her husband was abusive and that removing him would set them both free. But the defense went on the offensive. They questioned Knox's credibility, a convicted felon and sex offender who had everything to gain by blaming Elena. They also highlighted that no direct evidence, no fingerprints, no video, no confession tied her physically to the murder. Defense attorney Rachel Kern argued, adultery is immoral, not homicidal. There is a world of difference between infidelity and intent to kill. Observers described the trial as a psychological duel, with each side dissecting messages and behaviors word by word. After 7 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 3 days. On April 10, 2024, the verdict was read. Guilty of first-degree murder. Guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. Elena DeRosa, the hair mogul's wife, was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. In the gallery, her daughters sobbed quietly, torn between love for their mother and grief for their father. The judge called the killing a profound act of betrayal that desecrated a family and community. Even after conviction, the story didn't end. In 2025, Elena's legal team filed an appeal claiming prosecutorial misconduct and mischaracterization of encrypted messages. As of now, the case remains under appellate review in California's 2nd District Court. Robert Knox remains incarcerated at a state facility in California. Christopher Austin, who testified for the prosecution, received a reduced sentence and now lives under a new identity in Oregon. The DeRosa daughters, now adults, have largely retreated from public view. Friends say they live quietly, managing what's left of their father's business assets. The house in Woodland Hills was sold in 2021. Neighbors say the new owners renovated the pool deck, but the memory of what happened there still lingers. To this day, the hair mogul's wife murder case stands as a chilling reminder of how love, greed, and deception can intersect within a seemingly perfect marriage. For investigators who worked the case, it remains unforgettable not just for its brutality, but for the psychological complexity behind it. One retired detective summarized it best. Everyone looked beautiful on the outside the home, the smiles, the social media posts, but behind that, there was rot. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a performance rehearsed, deliberate, and deadly. In a city built on beauty where appearances are currency, even the most perfect lives can hide the darkest secrets. Marco DeRosa was the embodiment of success, a hair mogul, a mentor, a man whose artistry helped shape Hollywood's image of glamour. But the same world that celebrated him would become the stage for his betrayal. On that January evening, behind the shimmering blue water of his backyard pool, lay the reality no one saw coming. 7 stab wounds, a trail of blood, and a silence that would haunt his family forever. At first, police believed it was random, but evidence doesn't lie, and sometimes it whispers the truth louder than words. A missing DVR, a lover's DNA, encrypted messages that read like code between co-conspirators. Piece by piece, detectives untangled a puzzle of obsession, greed, and deception, revealing a love triangle so dangerous it destroyed 3 lives and scarred 2 more forever. They say love can drive people to madness, but what happened in Woodland Hills wasn't spontaneous passion. It was a plan rehearsed with chilling precision. Elena DeRosa, the devoted wife in public, became the prime suspect in private. Behind her designer clothes and camera-ready smile, prosecutors saw a woman chasing freedom, a future with her lover, a life without her husband, and access to his $1 million insurance policy. Her lover, Robert Knox, once a racquetball coach with a criminal past, became her shadow, a man willing to cross every moral line for her approval. And Christopher Austin, the quiet intermediary, would later reveal the plan in its starkest truth. She left the door open. She said he'd be home alone. She told him it had to look like a burglary. The trial was a spectacle. For years, the public had seen Elena as a grieving widow, a woman whose tears fell for cameras and charity events alike. But inside Department 106, prosecutors called it what they believed it was, an act of theater. Jurors watched message logs light up the screen, timestamps matching every step of the crime. They listened as Knox, the confessed killer, relived the stabbing, his voice cracking under the weight of guilt and fear. When the verdict finally came, guilty on all counts, it was more than a conviction. It was the shattering of an illusion. The image of a perfect California marriage dissolved into something darker, something that spoke to the quiet danger of hidden lives and unmet desires. Today, the DeRosa daughters live in silence, their family name forever tied to tragedy. The once lavish home has new owners. The pool has been resurfaced, but the neighborhood still remembers. Every summer, as the evening light hits that same backyard, locals say the air turns unnaturally still, as if the house itself remembers what happened there. True crime isn't just about the killers or the victims. It's about the moment love turns into leverage, when trust becomes the weapon. In this case, justice was delivered, but peace, that's something no court can restore. The hair mogul's empire continues to inspire stylists around the world. His name still graces products and competitions. But behind that legacy lies a warning, a story of vanity, betrayal, and the high price of deception. In the end, it wasn't the fame or fortune that doomed them, it was the lie of happiness, the lie of love, the lie that she could have it all, if only he were gone. Marco de Rosa built his life on beauty, but the truth, the one buried beneath the glitter, was never beautiful. And in the City of Angels, that truth still echoes, one whispered reminder at a time. Nothing perfect ever really is. This case is based on verified court documents, police investigations, and trial transcripts. Names have been fictionalized for privacy. Subscribe for more real cases where truth is stranger than fiction, only on Criminal Minds Archives.